function, I'm going to make you continue to meet your standard traditional key performance indicators that I'm going to reward you with your bonus at the end of the year, with your wonderful raise and promotion, on the same things that I've always measured you on, and not sustainability.
CSO, I cannot write them that fast. Yeah, but really, CSO is a service organization, and you brought the power of the words, and sustainability has a lot of power. People don't use it, and here is where there are a couple of powers. It's sustain and ability. It's a compound word. The second thing is counterfactual. Ask any CSO, do you want your company not to be sustainable? Would you, be recognized as a leader of a non-sustainable in front of your shareholders? Let's not even talk about the stakeholders, right? Would you want to be named the, unsustainable CSO of the year? Because you can't do that.
That's right. So let's ask the question, Manuel. Why do companies fail? Or let's put a more positive spin. What can you do to ensure that companies succeed? Right?
There are many short answers, and they become cliche, but walk the talk. Don't just separate the talk, which is cultural change, leads to cultural change. Don't be disingenuous and separate the two. I'm for sustainability, but I'm not going to pay for it.
And I'm not going to pay for it, but I'm going to make you, Mr. Job worker in whatever function, I'm going to make you continue to meet your standard traditional key performance indicators that I'm going to reward you with your bonus at the end of the year, with your wonderful raise and promotion, on the same things that I've always measured you on, and not sustainability. What am I going to pay attention to? I got to feed my family, right? You're saying sustainability, the KPIs and ESG, but yet you're measuring me over here. So you've got to align your metrics and reward system. You have to define your roles and responsibilities. You have to redefine your metrics and reward, or align your metrics and reward systems. And you have to put the oversight and accountability into place that is going to fuel the behavior inside of an organization. That is another component to all of this.
Sorry, Isabella, I thought you wanted to say something. Please go ahead.
No. Did I look like that? I was a good listener.
You are. So yes, and actually, I think there is some help, at least in the European Union, and many companies around the world are for a big surprise. There was a Wall Street Journal article saying about 10,000 companies will have to report according to the European standards by January 1st, and we talk, a very few short months. And I'm sure that a lot, and by the way, the reporting is not only what's inside the company, but also the suppliers. And it not only carries big fines and big sticks in terms of even jail term for false reporting, but also it incentivizes companies to report properly with subsidies. And I know the word subsidies is maybe ill-chosen, but with incentives to comply. So there is compliance. And again, it's a big eye-opener. I know we can talk for hours. I would like to take a little bit the conversation to a different and sort of in a short term. Imagine you are in the first week in the office, in the new office of CSO with all your experience, and then 6 months later or a year later, How do you see this progression? What would you do the first week? What would you do? How would you measure 6 to 1 year later progress?
So what would you do the first week, and what would you be looking at to measure 6 months to 1 year later? Is that the question?
Yeah, to measure yourself, right?
Okay. So I'm actually going to, this is really very important. I'm actually going to answer that a little bit differently and say, let's not start with the first week. Let's start with week -1 or minus however. Before you take the job of Chief Sustainability Officer, to be able to inform what you're going to do once you get inside that organization, what you're going to be able to do is you have to assess where the organization is, right? You have to understand this company and what their mindset is and what their drivers are before you walk into that door. Because you don't want to just walk in and start, okay, I'm here. You've got to have you got to be ready to hit the ground running. We are in a race against time, right? We're really in a race against time. So I'm going to say, what do you do before that first week, Manuel? And that is understand where an organization is on what I call the capability maturity model for sustainability. And there's 2 ends of the spectrum. Starting off with, if you're familiar with capability maturity models, you start off with ad hoc. They're doing something here, they're doing stuff there, they don't really know what they're doing, they're just kind of all over the place. We need a CSO to come in and figure stuff out. Then there's organizations that are one step up from that are about compliance, right? Their mindset is just around compliance. And what they're doing is they're playing whack-a-mole. Oop, this popped up. Let's deal with that. Oop, this popped up. Let's deal with that. Oop, we just got a survey in from a supplier asking if we have an indigenous person policy in place in Canada. Do we have one? No. Oop, let's make one. Right? There's this. So they're playing whack-a-mole. Then from there is they get, we're going to be fully compliant. We're going to be on top of this. We're going to know what we need to do, especially the people in the European Union, right? You just mentioned that, because Europe is taking very much of a stick approach, whereas the United States, we're taking more of a carrot approach. So you got to understand, where they're at that way. So compliance. Then companies, the next stage in the capability maturity model is understanding the risk component. So organizations are using this as a risk management tool. Where are the risks that our company is facing from the perspective of sustainability, and making sure we're addressing it from a risk perspective. And then finally, as you building that, you're starting to look at operational excellence and looking at sustainability as a competitive advantage. So step 1 is understanding where that organization is on that capability model, maturity model, and where their mindset is. The next thing you have to do is understand who are the organization's stakeholders from a customer perspective and from an investor perspective on either end, and government organizations. So who are the stakeholders that you have to be aware of? And that will inform you as to where that company's mind needs to be if it isn't already now. So once you walk in the door, understanding that, then you know where to go. So now we're at week 1. Week 1, we're in the door. First thing you need to do, and Isabella was the one that brought this up earlier, is you have to attack the transformation piece. So the first thing that you do is you go around and you kiss babies and shake hands. You get to know who the key players are in the organization. You have to know who the departments are. You have to understand where each individual that is in a position of influence is in their understanding and in their own personal journey on the topic of sustainability. What a lot of CSOs come in and find out is that people are neither here nor there. They just don't know what I don't know. And this is where you can start the conversation of, so you're the vice president of supply chain. Well, if you're the vice president of supply chain in a major organization, you've already got your head on straight. You know what you got to do. But if you're a smaller organization and you're still trying to figure it out, let's sit down and have a conversation. How can I, remember, I'm a servant leader. I'm here to serve. How can I serve you? So week 1 is all about getting to know everybody in the organization and let them know that you're not there to make their lives miserable. You're there to lend a hand and to serve their needs. That's week 1. So where are we 6 months to a year now? I didn't forget your full question, Manuel. Even though my hair is just as gray as yours, I just hide it. And that is, again, it depends on what where the organization's mindset is. But I would measure the success of the CSO in their ability to influence the organization, the various people in the organization, and the ability to help the organization achieve the goals that they need to achieve in addition to ESG goals or sustainability goals. So if you can come in and you can help whatever department is in the organization increase their revenues, decrease their costs, whatever the traditional KPIs are, those still have to be met. And the CSO has got to be measured in lockstep with those key performance indicators for every organization. And then whether or not ESG has been properly embedded in. It's kind of a two-pronged approach. It has to come together. It has to be synchronous. So the CSO isn't, we're just going to measure the CSO over here for what, no, it has to, it's got to be combined. And of course, everybody's talking about net zero. There's definitely a net zero component. Have we established our carbon footprint, our emissions footprint? And where are we on the path to reducing that? That's the number one concern for everybody right now today, right?
You're on mute, Manuel.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. Two things. First thing, Professor Tobin, which I'm sure you know, and he came to an early interview with us, had an interesting comment when he mentioned greenwashing. And that came in your conversation, in your discussion, in another form. But basically, I see the CSO now as the orchestrator of alignment. And Professor Tobin said, "Look, let them greenwash, because," and this is like a year ago, "because they will have to call to execute." Because they were saying greenwashing is bad, and he said, "No, greenwashing is maybe the first step toward the execution." And it's not the step would like. I'm not quoting him, ad literam, but the discussion had happened, and we have a record of it. So it's very interesting, the perspective that, as you said, the CSO 1 year later, 6 months later, has to find what this alignment between what the company had said and the company has done to execute and help orchestrate. The other point you brought into discussion, and maybe you can give us a short definition because it doesn't come too often, is servant leader.
Servant leader. So the job of a leader is to serve the needs of those around her or him. The job of the leader is to make sure that everybody else succeeds. It's not about whether I succeed. It's not about whether I get a pat on the back and I get a raise or a promotion. It's about whether or not everybody around me does. It's my job to make everyone else shine. So that's servant leadership. It's understanding that you're not the one that matters. everybody else matters. And I can tell you this, every successful leader, wildly successful leader, that a leader for good, right, is a servant leader, because they understand that it's the people in the organization that actually make things happen. You don't make things happen by yourself. You don't. You don't. And it has to come from the heart, and it has to be true, and it has to be genuine. There can't be ulterior motives, right? And people know it. People aren't stupid.
We have a tremendous, probably evolutionary detector of BS.
Yeah, I
Not
love
to
it.
say the full word. I know you constrain on time. I would love to continue, and as I mentioned, to have you back, but we still have one more last question, and I'll turn to Isabella.
Go for it.
We have about 20 voluntary students from different college, very inspired by AKFI's mission on a sustainable future. It shows a great sign that the next generations are much more aware of what needs to be done in order to have a better future for them and their next generations. So that's a very inspiring thing to see. And we always wanted to help them, to nurture them on this journey. So it will be their honor to hear from you. What will be your advice to their career in sustainability?
Oh boy. Let's see. First and foremost, what I would say is that get your head out of the clouds. Fast. It is good, and it is noble, and it is heartwarming, and all those nice feel-good words to think, oh, I'm saving the planet. Oh, I'm doing what's right and what's good. We're not going to get there by feeling good and saying nice things. We have to approach this in a judicious manner. Seriously. This is not a joke. We can't walk around and say, oh, we're going to be more friendly to the environment. Oh, we're going to be really mad at the big, bad, ugly oil companies. This is serious stuff. This is going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of intelligence. It's not just going to take heart. It's going to take engineering skills, business skills, technical skills from like information technology. It's going to take a tremendous amount of collaboration, of people coming together. So this is going to be hard work. If you think that you're walking into this thinking that, oh, this is, I'm going to go hug a tree. No, this is going to be hard work. We don't have a choice. So get ready, roll up your sleeves, and get to it, right? That's first and foremost. Secondly, ditch the attitude. Ditch the attitude. Not all of them have that. Just some of them. There's a lot of them. Ditch the attitude that there's an us versus them. Ditch it. We're all in this together. And there is such, 40 years in the oil industry, you're going to hear this from me. Stop trying to make the oil companies out to be the big bad oil companies. Stop looking for an enemy, because let me tell you what, the oil companies have invested 3 times more than any other industry on the planet combined. 3 times more than everybody else combined in renewable energy. But yet they're the evil oil companies. Stop the us versus them. We're working together. Reach out, grab somebody's hand. How can we work together? How can we innovate? There's nothing more exciting than innovating, right? There's nothing more exciting than that. Think differently. Think outside the box. Find ways to talk to people. This is what diversity and inclusion is all about. Find ways to work with people that aren't like you, that think differently from you. And then we're really going to be able to make some progress. So That's one. The other thing would be prepare for the evolution. Your life, your job, your role, your career is going to change and evolve. We're not sure how yet, but you want to be a part of it because there's nothing more exciting right now than this change that's happening in the world. You want to be a part of it and be prepared that there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but it's going to be like ups and downs, but continuously moving in the right direction. So be prepared for rocky roads, but it's going to be going uphill. Get excited about it, and it's going to change. And then I would say, finally, just be excited. Be excited. That's what I would say.
Delfina, I very quickly, you made a case for work for the hardest sustainability challenge. Go and work for an oil company, not, an NGO that, as you said, they have their role, and I'm not trying to put them in a different category, but, go and learn where the rubber hits the road.
Yes, and let me comment on this. Is a philosophy of mine. So, 40 years in the oil industry. Obviously, I started off in 1979 where there were no women, right? Mm-hmm. And so through my life and through my career, I've always had women organizations reach out to me and say, "Oh, Delfina, come be a part of our women organization." And yes, I do. In my old age, I mentor. I'm part of Women Offshore, women leadership conferences and whatever. But throughout my career, whenever I've been pulled into be part of this women's group, I was like, no. If I'm going to affect change in my industry, I'm going to be right smack in the middle of where the men are. Because I'm standing over here going, "Oh, you bad men, bad men, bad men." What is that accomplishing, right? You make more strides, you make more of an impact if you're right smack in the middle of where you perceive the problem to be, because that's where the solution is. Same thing with sustainability. If you really want to see some exciting, mind-blowing technological innovations, come to the oil industry.
The best commercial I've ever heard for oil industry, Delfina. They should pay you for this. I'm serious. And I'll take all the 3 advice you give to our interns personally as well. I think it applies to me as well. So thank you very much. Love everything you shared today.
I'm quite opinionated, aren't I?
Yeah. That's your specialty. Don't change.
The rights. You have the rights to be, because otherwise we are wishy-washy. The message is not clear. The words are getting lost in long-winded sentences.
Well, one more time, Delfina, wonderful conversation. I can't be grateful anymore for this almost hour-long, insightful conversation. You just pour us with your years of experience and everything. You just never enough to let us know. And that's your fighter spirit. Thank you so much. And we'll continue this discussion, as Manuel said, for the second round. And thank you all, our audience as well. The pleasure is all ours. And thanks to our audience as well for being here, joining us every week, and make sure to tuning in for the next episode of AKFI's Actionable ESG Talks series, where you can gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risk and create value by integrating ESG and digital transformation. Until the next one, bye Delfina, bye Manuel.
Bye Delfina, bye Isabella. Thank you.